Delighted to have, hearing from the consumer's point of view, has been raised a couple of times, from Malta, the chair of the Malta Competition and Consumer Affairs Authority, Helga Pizzuto.
Yes, you mentioned consumers, so I take it off from there. And in the last panel, there was a lot of talk about the role of consumers. And the last few words were volumes, the high volumes. The high volumes equals the number of consumer interactions. So if we address the consumer issue, we are not solving the problem, but we're definitely addressing a big part of it. The consumer, at the end of the day, generates intentionally or unintentionally demand, the demand that is fueling this criminal activity, IP crime, basically. So I will not talk to you about the importance of IP for consumers, but rather what we can do better to engage both consumers and consumers' associations in this battle. We mentioned it this morning that the EUIPO has just published its latest survey on consumer perspectives and awareness. The survey was carried out in February this year, so it's very recent. It was carried out online with consumers years 15 and upwards. The results, because we mentioned a lot of negatives, but there were also positive outcomes in this survey. The results indicate that more and more consumers perceive the purchase of counterfeits as harmful, and they agree that they should be respecting IP. There is also a general awareness of the risks associated with buying counterfeit products and downloading illegal content, so this is good news. Clearly, we heard there's 1/3 that have purchased, of the youngsters in particular, that have purchased either counterfeit products or downloaded illegal content. And there's also an indication that a higher percentage would be ready to do so if the price was right or if they could not access the content from their current subscriptions. So there's much still to be done. So a few thoughts from my end of how we can encourage consumers to make more responsible decisions. And a lot of the points have been touched on. I have the disadvantage of being at the end of the day when most of the discussion has already taken place. But first, we need to continue with our current efforts on prioritizing how to increase consumer awareness. Second, we need more initiatives that can help consumers and regulatory bodies effectively detect and remove from the market counterfeit or pirated products. Third, we need to create an environment where consumers are motivated to include IP in their many considerations when making purchasing decisions. The importance of raising consumer awareness has long been recognized. Educational material has been drawn up, and campaigns have been run with positive results. This effort needs to be continued to be sustained. The Observatory's outreach to consumer representatives is also ensuring that the key stakeholders are more and more collectively engaged on this front. This is an important step in the right direction. Consumers typically turn to consumer authorities and consumer associations for information and guidance. EU-funded initiatives aimed at increasing consumers' value of IPR and undertaken with the partnership of consumer associations are good examples to follow, and more similar initiatives would be beneficial. There is also merit in building a stronger linkage between consumer-focused agenda and the protection of intellectual property rights. Under consumer law, the sale of counterfeit or pirate products is considered a misleading and unfair commercial practice. But the negative impact these products leave go beyond a consumer being scammed and directly impact innovation, as we've heard this morning, can expose buyers to unsafe products, environmental threats, and cyber risks. Overall, they undermine markets that should be working for consumers. Better integrating IPR into the European consumer agenda would ensure a coordinated approach to raising awareness, fostering collaboration, and strengthening enforcement to create an environment that respects and protects intellectual property. With the growth of online sales and the difficulty of controlling what is made available to consumers, we should continue to invest in our efforts to help both consumers and market watchdogs identify sites that are likely to be selling counterfeit products or supporting piracy. From a consumer legislation perspective, the Omnibus Directive has been a much-needed step in the right direction, as it has, amongst others, extended the scope of consumer protection law to address specific issues linked to online sales. While the directive does not have specific provisions related to piracy, the market oversight that is being set up to ensure the effective implementation of these new provisions can also serve to facilitate the identification of sites possibly selling products in breach of IPR. In addition, including sales of counterfeit products and illegitimate online content in the EU Commission's and consumer bodies' coordinated sweep of websites is another initiative that could be looked into and that could serve to sensitize better consumer authorities to the extent of the problem, as well as provide valuable information for consumer information campaigns. This brings me to the point of enforcement. It's been touched on this morning, even now in one of the latest questions, and the issues that we have, particularly when dealing with cross-border enforcement cases where third countries are involved. As a consumer protection authority, we also have responsibility for product safety, and we regularly encounter products that do not meet EU standards and that pose safety risks. These substandard products, even if the majority are not per se counterfeit, also undoubtedly encroach into the legitimate market of IP holders. The EU has a well-established setup related to product safety. It includes a whole process of risk-based sample taking, verification of suspect products, and the REPEX platform that shares information between member states and also with the public in order to recall products and withdraw dangerous goods from the market. Why do I mention this? It's because the areas where we have high risks are children's clothing, electrical machinery and equipment, and toys. And I was surprised to see that they were also a high percentage of the products that are counterfeit that are arriving into Europe. So we don't just have a counterfeit issue, but we also have a linked product safety issue. Within this context, a similar and where possible linked process to that being adopted in respect of product safety is worth considering. Here I'd like to underline that whatever tools are set up, we maximize on our current efforts and resources, and where possible, work together. We're mentioning the lack of resources. Let's not reinvent systems, reinvent the wheels. We need to work together, have more information sharing. We've been hearing about this all day. Set up interoperable IT systems and coordinate our enforcement actions. But even if we had the best market monitoring and enforcement mechanisms, on their own, they will never be enough as long as the counterfeit and piracy market remains lucrative. We must therefore adopt measures to raise the importance that consumers give to IP when making purchasing decisions. This was mentioned as well this morning. Our messages have to be simple. I think it was mentioned by Jean-Paul. Consumers get lost if our communication is not clear, simple, and addresses their particular circumstances. And I will mention the example we have with product safety. You would think that if you tell a person that the product they have just bought is not safe, they would not use it or they would not buy it again. And there are a number of cases, not a few, when the consumers consider that you are not looking after their interests, but looking after market interest. And you really need to dig down to explain to them what is that element of product safety which they are being faced with, the exact risk they are being faced with. Affordability and accessibility continues to be two key drivers of illegal purchases. Affordability remains a matter for industry to address, but more initiatives can be taken collectively to facilitate accessibility and easy identification of sites selling genuine products or legal content. Consumer campaigns are also need to be widespread and sustained over time in order to bring about a change in buying behavior. Finally, we need to maintain the open discussion and the sharing of experience, such as we are doing today, in order to continue to contribute to our collective efforts to keep up with the ever-evolving challenges related to IP enforcement and consumer protection. Thank you.